The Yankees won 10-3 today against the Colorado Rockies in a game they had to have. And they showcased an absolute juggernaut of an offense, including 5 home runs. We're going to get into it, Gary. But before we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't already on this channel. We really appreciate everybody that's following along. And we also want to shout out some new members of our channel. Of course, it is 468 for the second deck membership. Appreciate you. The LI Kid field level membership, and Michael Arminas, the second deck membership. And the LI Kid already has a mailbag question.
Oh, let's do it.
So we're just gonna roll right into it, Gary. The Yankees are 77-54, best record in the AL, second best in baseball. Every team has flaws, including the good ones, but it seems like the Yankees have more flaws. Excuse me. It seems like the Yankees have more flaws than a team with the record that would normally have. Does something have to drastically change before the playoffs, and if so, what? So I'll let you handle that to start.
Well, let's be realistic about where the Yankees are.
Mm-hmm.
I think to answer this question, we have to address that first. The Yankees right now aren't really having a problem scoring. I would say the Yankees offense has been pretty good. And you can point to a few things as to why that's happening. Gleyber Torres has been a huge reason why at the leadoff spot, right? Austin Wells, they figured out Austin Wells is not just a platoon bat. He's a guy who's spectacular. Obviously, he didn't play today, but the Yankees are getting contributions from Jazz Chisholm, who they got at the deadline. I guess where I'm at is that we've talked about this, Jake, is that the Yankees do have flaws. They have flaws Absolutely. That should have been addressed. And unfortunately, we look dumb kind of talking over and over again about what it is the Yankees need to do at the deadline, because now the deadline's done and we can't affect anything. I guess technically we couldn't have affected the deadline anyway. But I guess the point here is that now that Brian Cashman did what he wanted to do, did what he was comfortable doing at the deadline, which was add Mark Leiter Jr., Delos Meatballs in the bullpen, and then Jazz Chisholm Jr., who, Jake, you were really high on that pickup. And as was I. You said you saw potential, a 30 home run potential from Jazz Chisholm, a potential star in this league. Now, you're saying this is not a player who's a star yet, but he could be a star with the Yankees. And I said he could be a star in his role. So I guess the takeaway here is that Jazz Chisholm was an amazing pickup, but the Yankees' problems are most often stemming on the mound. Whether we're not getting any innings from our starting pitching, we didn't add any starting pitching. But Brian Cashman was essentially telling you, we're waiting on Cody Poteet, we're waiting on Clark Schmidt, we're waiting on Garrett Cole to get right. Luis Heel, we're anticipating him to be ready to go by October. So all these things, Rodon, Nestor, Stroman, they're hoping all these guys just kind of bounce back all at once. And if that happens, I'm sure Brian Cashman feels like, yes, we're a supremely flawed team, but name me the team that isn't.
No, I agree. I mean, I think when you look at the flaws that the Yankees have, I think there's a lot of flaws that other teams have. I think that is just the story of the year, right? That's what I would say. That's how I would answer the question, is that, I don't think anything has to drastically change, because, the one thing that I would say is really just inserting Jason Dominguez's bat into this lineup. That's really it. But I don't think anything has to drastically change, because there's not a ton that they can drastically change in general. I mean, when you really think about it. So Rizzo, he might be back soon, and Birdie, Homer, they should have called him up the second he got home from rounding the bases. I mean, that's all I needed to see.
Throw him in left field.
I mean, he couldn't hit anything, for a home run, in the big leagues this year. And then the first thing, he just rips a pitch, and I didn't see where it went. He just absolutely smoked it. It didn't land. It's still going. So the point I'm making here is that I think the only drastic changes they have to make are guys like that, where it's you have to find a way to get Birdie at bats. You have to find a way to get Rizzo at bats. And I think you have to find a way to get Jason Dominguez at bats. Now, as far as the pitching goes, just put Clark Schmidt and Cody Poteet on this team when they're ready. I think Efros and even Lou Trevino, who's pitching well, and I'm not like a huge Lou Trevino fan. Let me make that very clear. But look at who is in the bullpen right now. Phil Bickford, by the way, who we'll touch on that a little bit because Michael Tonkin got DFA'd. But I think when you look at what drastically needs to change, there's just not really much. It's really just these reinforcements, actually let them be reinforcements and don't be like, yeah, wouldn't that be cool if they could help us out? We're going to keep them in AAA.
Yeah, this is very typical, though, of the Yankees. This is very typical of Brian Cashman. Kind of to answer this is, did the Yankees do enough? Well, when was the last time in the last 5 years you watched a deadline occur by way of Brian Cashman and said, man, the Yankees are going for it? You never saw that. A lot of people, there were some people super happy about Joey Gallo, right?
I was not.
They've made other pickups at the deadline, and most often, majority of fans are being left with the feeling of half-baked. That's the way it's felt. The Yankees, they mitigated risk. We didn't take a ton of risk. We didn't trade any top prospects. And then you go a year or two in the future, and none of those guys that they really protected outside of Anthony Volpe are on the big league team. So no, like, do I feel satisfied? Not really. Is it okay because other teams like the Baltimore Orioles, who obviously we're trying to outrun, is it okay that we don't have answers in our bullpen that we feel confident of because they have bullpen issues? Not really. It's not exactly how I would like to do business. I don't really care what Baltimore's doing. My mentality has always been, let's focus on what we have here and who we can bring in to help. And at the end of the deadline, if you feel like we've done enough to be a World Series championship team, then you should be satisfied. And when we get to October, now we need to get it done. But it seems like the Yankees just kind of looked around and said, well, we're better than that okay team. And then they were satisfied with it. So yeah, I totally understand asking this question. I get it. The Yankees didn't do a ton, but neither did anybody else. And we just have to hope it's enough.
No, I agree with that. I wanted to throw something real quick because I actually kind of thought of this, again, this is what happens when you ask a mailbag question, a thought-provoking question, other things come of it, especially on this channel. Remember Miguel Castro? He was on the Yankees.
He went to Arizona.
Yes. So I want to make this clear because Miguel Castro was a guy who they kept telling us was a reinforcement in 2022, right? They could not wait to get him back. And he ended up making the postseason roster, didn't really do much of anything. And I just feel like there is, so I wanted to kind of step back a little bit and just, acknowledge that there is a balance that needs to be had here. You can't just be like, oh, Efros is here and Lou Trevino and all that. You have to find the right guys and they have to prove themselves to be on this postseason roster, in my opinion, because otherwise you're going to leave guys off the roster that deserve to be on just because Lou Trevino is essentially a guy that you traded for 2 years ago and you really want to see him pitch because he's coming back from injury. It shouldn't work that way. It hasn't worked that way with Jason Dominguez. I mean, Jason Dominguez essentially did not just immediately go back to the bigs when he was healthy, even though that was what we were told was the plan. He'd be there.
That is interesting how that happened, by the way, is that Jason Dominguez suddenly became a prospect again. He got hurt.
Yep.
And now they treated it like a rehab assignment. Now that Jason Dominguez obviously is healthy, the Yankees are talking about whether or not he fits on the roster. That's actually something that Brian Cashman has said. That's not something that I've guessed. Brian Cashman has said, as of now, there isn't necessarily a runway for him, as in the outfield.
Which is insane.
Which is blasphemous because Alex Verdugo, who we want to give him his credit, he was 2 for 4 today. He had a contribution. But this is a player who he hit a home run yesterday. He hadn't hit a home run in a month and a half, and he's hitting 229. So to say that Jason Dominguez, who's clearly healthy now, is not like there's no spot for a player like that, that just seems like malpractice and obvious. Someone actually said this to me on Twitter earlier today. They said that Jason Dominguez's agent should borderline sue this organization for not calling him up when very clearly this is just roster manipulation, because it very clearly is. If he's called up, which you brought up, I know you had me do the math there. We were trying to punch it in the calculator. how many
September
more
14th,
at bats?
I think it is.
Yeah, it was like roughly September 10th through the 14th that Jason Dominguez would essentially be able to be called up as a member of the big league team, play every single day, get his 4 at bats per game, and would still be able to protect his rookie rights. He would be a rookie next year, so that the Yankees could, in hopes of winning Rookie of the Year by way of Jason Dominguez, they get a compensatory pick in the first round. That's what we're talking about here. And I've told you before, Jake, for the Yankees, a $7.5 billion organization to be caring about something like that when they can spend $300 million on players is just, it's obviously ridiculous. And it just kind of goes to show anyone watching the Yankees at any level, Major League Baseball, AAA, all the way down to rookie ball, and you see a player as good as Jason Dominguez, as well as he's playing, and considering what he did at the end of last year, for him not to be on this big league team is obviously, it's just organizational malpractice. And unfortunately, it's not going to cost anyone their job, but it's our job as podcasters that cover the Yankees every day to bring this up and make sure that people understand, which I'm sure they do, that this is an obvious choice. This is an obvious upgrade for the Yankees, and we're hoping we see it sometime in the next week. We just don't have expectation that it will.
No, absolutely. I think just, kind of to drive home the initial point though, just because a guy is on your IL and you're excited about Brubaker, for instance, if Brubaker were to come back, he doesn't look good. Okay, I don't know what his status is, but he doesn't look good. Ian Hamilton, to me, is somebody I'd like to see on this postseason roster if he earns it. Like, I don't want to see them just force a guy like Lou Trevino on there just because they're excited about, like Miguel Castro 2.0. So yeah, and I totally get all the things with Jason Dominguez. I mean, he's red hot right now. We talked about it, last episode. I mean, I couldn't understand how Scranton Wilkes-Barre was winning games and they were the number 1 team in their division by such a wide margin. And the reality is they have no starting pitching, but they have probably one of the best offenses in minor league baseball. And so it goes to show you, though, they have plenty of guys. And I think this is why people got annoyed with, Jahmai Jones, who was chilling there, and, Trent Grisham. It's like, are we sure these guys are better options than some of the guys in AAA? And I don't know. I will say this, though. Jahmai Jones has been a contributor in AAA. And that he's also been a big reason why they're doing what they're doing. But you get my point there. We're going to go into the 3-headed monster. So, talk about the Yankees offense today, because 10-3, this is a game. I said to you, texted you, I'm like, this is a game the Yankees win. This is the type of game the Yankees win. They looked like they were going to win, but it did get a little too close for comfort. And 7th inning kind of changed everything. Before we get into that, though, I just want to shout out every member on this channel, because I don't think we've done that yet.
Let's do it.
Ed W, Field Level, Sierran O'Malley. If I butcher anyone's name, I apologize. Second Deck, Wolf Rockin 74, Second Deck, Thomas Gibson, Second Deck, Jeff J, Field Level, Carlos Marrero, Field Level, Michael Armanas, Second Deck, Kid from LI, Field Level, and of course it is 468, Second Deck. We appreciate you guys. We continue to grow our members. And
shout out Michael, by the way, huge friend of the channel. I know, I'm hoping he gets involved with the mailbag, because we go back and forth on Twitter. There are a lot of smart people who follow our channel every day.
Yes.
And just follow our Twitters, because I mean, we're not huge fans of Twitter, but every once in a while we meet some good people, and Michael's one of those guys. So special shout out to Michael.
I love that, man. Well said. You guys are awesome, because, obviously we were just monetized not that long ago on YouTube. And so we're really trying to grow this thing and turn it into a full-time venture. And your support helps. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I mean, the memberships are really eye-opening. Honestly, it surprised us early on how quickly they have grown. But let's move on to the 3-headed monster. And what I mean by that is Stanton, Soto, and of course, last but not least, Judge. So, look, you said it yesterday with the Teixeira bit. Like, when this team has another guy aside from Judge and Soto that can rake in a game, they don't lose. They don't. I mean, today, if they could have gotten this yesterday, they win even with Will Warren on the mound. Like, that's the reality of it, is that unfortunately, and honestly, doesn't this kind of tie into like our, frustrations yesterday? Like, why is Stanton not in the lineup? 2 home runs in a row. Then he's not in the lineup. Then he comes back today and he hits a home run. So it's 3 out of the 4 games. And I'm sure somebody will say, well, would he have hit the home run today without the, day off yesterday? Yes, he would have, because that is Giancarlo Stanton.
That's the way they look at it too. That's the crazy part. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of people would back us here. You can't just sit someone and say, yeah, he's fresh. That's the reason he hit a home run. It's like, well, then why did he hit a home run back-to-back days prior? Giancarlo Stanton is doing really what I was hoping for. Because remember, at the beginning of the year, everyone wanted him DFA'd, including us. And we're willing to admit that. But when they figured out that he wasn't going to be DFA'd, I remember specifically saying my expectations of Giancarlo Stanton is going to be streaky. Be streaky. If you're going to go hit 245, which is exactly what he's doing, his ops is 800, very serviceable in this league. That's 100 points over average. That's going to be because Giancarlo Stanton for a 10-day stretch is going to look like a 3-hitter for a contender. That's the way Giancarlo does his business. And then 3 weeks from now, Giancarlo may look like he's trying to cut down a tree trunk. That's just what you come to expect. But that is more than a lot of this league can say. And in any of these games where Giancarlo's doing this, and he's giving us that 3-headed monster where you just brought up, the Yankees don't lose. The Yankees don't lose when there's a third player contributing. And by the way, another player, I know we were talking about the 3-headed monster, Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres right now is a table setter. People talk all the time about Derek Jeter and what he did for a lot of great Yankees teams. Well, his job was to set the table for all the big boppers. Who's hitting third? Who's hitting fourth? For a lot of those teams, a lot of great players. Well, you know what? When you drive in 120 runs a year, you don't do that by driving yourself in. Gleyber Torres is standing on first base, which is exactly what we've asked every other leadoff hitter to do for this Yankees team. He's doing exactly that. Gleyber Torres, in his last 30 games, his on-base percentage, I want to make sure I don't cut him short here. His last 15 games, his on-base is 400.
Yeah.
It's spectacular. It's exactly what we asked for. We're talking, I think it was the last 45 games, he's now eclipsed 380. I mean, this is one of the best leadoff hitters in the game right now. Yeah, and obviously he wasn't spectacular just a month and a half ago, but we need to remember this is coming all post-benching. And that is one aspect you have got to give Aaron Boone credit. They did bench him. They benched Gleyber Torres. If you're not going to hustle, if you're not going to hit 275, 280, the way we're accustomed to you doing, if you're not going to drive the ball in the seats, if you're going to lead the league in errors, come sit down with me. Come sit down with me. And all of the fans that are complaining about Gleyber Torres' hustle, rightfully so. And we're not just going to talk about it. We're going to sit you down with me. It's exactly what the Yankees did. They bring Gleyber Torres back to the field, and suddenly the Yankees went from having no leadoff hitter to the point where you wanted to move, and I totally get it. You wanted to move Austin Wells, who was hitting very well in the 4 spot at the time, because his on-base percentage and his plate discipline were spectacular. We contemplated moving him to leadoff. Why? Because we had no one else that would do the job correctly. Nobody. There was nobody. Anthony Volpe couldn't do the job. DJ LeMahieu couldn't do the job. Alex Verdugo was asked to do the job. He wouldn't do the job. So the Yankees were hard-pressed because they had to move 4 and 5 hitters to their leadoff spot. Well, Gleyber Torres just answered that problem. And now, when Jason Dominguez gets called up, you don't have to ask him to hit leadoff and expect him to perform right away. Now you can plug him in probably after Giancarlo Stanton in the 5 spot. You move Jazz Chisholm down to your 6 spot. How much better does our lineup look now? Right? It's ridiculous. And also, just to talk about the rest of that 3-headed monster, the fact that people keep bringing it up to me is like, why are people pitching to Aaron Judge? Why are people pitching to Juan Soto? And I guess my answer, Jake, is that they don't. They really don't. They don't pitch to these players. I actually want to bring up some numbers for you because I think these numbers are very important so that people understand the context of what they're asking. And I remember bringing up the point that a lot of these teams that were playing based on strength of schedule, not very good teams, why wouldn't they pitch to these players? the Colorado Rockies have something to lose pitching Aaron Judge. They wouldn't get on TV unless Aaron Judge hit a home run anyway. So here we are. Juan Soto and
in
Aaron
a way,
Judge.
Isn't it better for their brand recognition to have Aaron Judge hitting bombs off them?
Absolutely. Who's going to watch the Colorado Rockies? So when people talk about why are people pitching to Soto and Judge, why would you ever do that? And I say, okay, valid question. Why don't we look at the numbers? Don't you know Juan Soto and Aaron Judge? Soto has walked 108 times. Judge has walked 106. The next highest player in the American League, this is stunning, 65 walks by Gunnar Henderson. 65. So we're going to have two players in summary that are going to walk over 125 times. The last time you even saw players walk that many times, it's like Barry Bonds, some of the greatest players of all time. So we're going to have two of those guys. And when it comes to October, guys, they're going to be walking these players. They are going to be. And that's where our roster depth, who we have it for, what does Stanton do? What does Chisholm, Dominguez, what do those players look like? Because if they perform in October, if you get anything, like if you get a home run from Giancarlo Stanton in October, it's not a solo jack anymore, ladies and gentlemen. That's a 3-run bomb. So that's the importance of Soto and Judge imposing their will. For all of you worried that they're going to walk them when these games start to matter in October, that's a valid thing to worry about. Absolutely, because we're used to these guys winning us ball games. But when Stanton and Chisholm and Volpe hit homers, we're used to them being solo shots over the years. Well, they're not going to be in the near future. So that's what I'm looking forward to. That's why I'm so excited about what this lineup can do. And that's why I've always said if the Yankees can get out, I think we've got a shot.
I absolutely agree with that. And, I think kind of going back to the Gleyber bit, you and I remember us talking about the benching. And I believe it was both of us. I know I definitely, I felt like the benching was going to have an immediate impact.
You did.
I don't think it is being talked about nearly enough. He hustles. He cares. He fights off pitches, pitch after pitch after pitch, puts together good at-bats. He's putting the ball in play. He's getting on base. He's filling the most important role that they couldn't even fill at the deadline. I mean, even they didn't even try to lead off Jazz Chisholm. They did not even try. So, and obviously you and I have talked about in the past, like maybe they should have, but right now I'm just glad to see what Gleyber's doing. And I think he's playing himself into a potential contract, probably a short-term deal.
Let's talk about that. I actually want to dive deeper into that because I want to make sure you finish this, but you talked about this a couple months ago and I agreed. And I want to tee this up. You mentioned the fact that Gleyber Torres' expectation was he was going to get a 5-year deal around $100 million. Now, that's not something that was on the table from the Yankees, but this was a guesstimate around baseball of what the expectation was. Gleyber Torres had 2 years in a row where he was spectacular offensively. He was the Yankees' third best player, clearly, and he was going to get around $100 million. That's what you pay for a player like that. So now that we saw an entire year, contract year, he obviously didn't play very hard in the first half of the year or the first half of the second half. And he didn't play well, but now he is. And he's kind of showing who he is. What type of contract would you feel comfortable with the Yankees offering? I'm actually curious what a lot of people think of this.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's look at what he's getting paid right now, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely a fair starting point. Spotrac has him post-arbitration at $14.2 million. I mean, really, I think that's going to be around what he gets. Okay. I think it's going to be because you have to understand something, not you, but just in general. If you're sitting there like, what do you mean is that going to be where he's going to get? Because he signed a 1-year, $14.2 million deal.
Right.
He's not signing for necessarily the money annually. He's signing for the long term because he needs to have some protection. He is going to be a free agent and wants a long-term deal in all likelihood, or at least some length. Mm-hmm. And actually, Spotrac's market value has him way below that. Way below that.
Do you think he's going to get below market value?
His calculated market value, Gary, is $7.1 million. So they have 3 years, $21.2 million would put him as the 226th ranked player and 11th ranked second baseman. Now, the calculated market value that Spotrac uses is they take comparable players, they base it on what they got paid and when they got paid. And so Nico Hoerner is somebody that had $11.6 million annually on a 3-year, $35 million deal at age 25. Gleyber is 27. He'll be 28 in December when free agency is there, right? So then you look at Brandon Drury. Drury, 2-year, $17 million, $8.5 million average annual. Paid that when he was 30. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, 2 years, $15 million, $7.5 million average annual at age 28, the exact age that Gleyber's going to be next year. David Fletcher, 5 years, $26 million, 5.2 average annual value, and that is 26 was the age he was paid. Now, statistical comparisons, right, with WAR and all of that. Games played, Gleyber actually, with the average being 79.2 out of the players that I just named, Gleyber games played percentage is 95.76, which is an underrated aspect of Gleyber. He's been healthy. He's been out there. And Gleyber's played more games than Hoerner, way more than Drury, way more than Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and more than David Fletcher. Then you look at hits per game, 0.98. He's averaging 0.98 hits per game. Okay. The only one that's ahead of him is Nico Hoerner there. The average is he's averaging 0.97. The average is 0.98, right? So then you have RBIs per game. He's averaging 0.42. The average is 0.41. He has more than everyone except for Drury and Hoerner. Strikeouts per game, Gleyber Torres has 0.74. The average is 0.57. They don't care about the strikeouts, especially the way he's been playing. Average per year, I don't really understand that. We'll go to OPS, so 0.74 OPS or whatever. I don't know most of these metrics. We'll go to WAR. How about that? WAR, average 3.66. Gleyber is a 1.64. Okay, so the base market value, they have him at 3 years, $22 million. And the calculated market value, when you weigh in all of the analytics and everything, is 3 years, $21.2 million. So, So I'll tell you right now, if the Yankees get Gleyber at 3 years for $21.2 million, if he actually would be willing to sign that, they'd be dumb not to do that.
Because people need to remember, I totally understand. If you've been frustrated with Gleyber Torres all year, he's underperformed. He hasn't run. He hasn't hustled in general. He didn't perform. You don't play hard, and you make excuses. You're also leading the league in errors, okay, at second base.
Yeah. But
let me say this about Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres isn't going to get anywhere close to 3 years, $21 million. And I'm going to tell you why, Jake. And you never said that he was, but I want to make sure people understand this. Gleyber Torres, this free agency, is going to sell teams on his median season. That's what matters in free agency, because I get it. If people are frustrated with Gleyber Torres and he waited to the very end to start performing like the Gleyber Torres you wanted, that frustrates you to the point where you don't want him back, by all means. Totally valid opinion. But Gleyber Torres, his career high in homers is 38. Okay. He's hit 134 home runs at the second base position. He hit 25 last year. He hit 24 the year prior. Okay. So this is a player that market value, they're talking about Nico Hoerner. Nico Hoerner has hit in a career high. He reached double-digit home runs once. One time ever. And once did he ever play 150 games. So I get it. People look at WAR. They look at defensive runs saved. They look at all these things in 2024. But if Nico Hoerner and Gleyber Torres reach free agency at the same exact time this offseason, well, Nico Hoerner isn't selling teams on what his average season was, because his average season isn't that great. It's a 270 hitter who hits about 6 home runs a year.
Yeah.
Gleyber Torres is showing up thinking, yeah, I might make a lot of errors, but on average, the player you're getting is going to hit 25 home runs next year. So
yeah,
if, in my opinion, what I think the Yankees are going to do, and we kind of talked about this might end up happening, I think Gleyber Torres ends up in an Anthony Rizzo type contract. You're talking about a 2-year deal with a club option or a player option, take your pick, more than likely a club option, because that's what Brian Cashman likes to do. It's likely to be probably around $18 million. Now, if that's a number that makes you uncomfortable, again, never trying to sell anybody on this player, but the average season of Gleyber Torres is a player that a lot of people would be more than happy taking in. A 25 home run a year guy who's not going to run very hard, right? He's going to drive in 75. He's going to make a ton of errors. Well, you know who else makes a ton of errors and we all wanted him? A lot of us did, was Jonathan India, right?
Yeah, tons.
So there are flawed players in this league. There are more flawed players in today's game than there's ever been. So Gleyber Torres just happens to be another one of those guys. He had a very, very poorly timed season, in my opinion. I mean, this couldn't be worse for him, but I just think in general, the best you can probably get from Gleyber Torres is a 1-year deal. And again, he's in a contract year. So you're essentially assuming in that 1-year deal, Gleyber Torres is going to revert back to who he's normally been, which is 2023, 2022 version. And if you're satisfied with that, the Yankees kind of made out like bandits next year. I mean, it kind of can work out in their favor. So I'm not sure if the Yankees do it. We're going to see. There are a lot of guys coming off the books, but it wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, it wouldn't surprise me either. And they have, guys in the minors who they like, Vivas, they like, Durbin, and, of course they, have Jason Dominguez as well in the minors. So, I mean, they have guys, right? But I do think, when you're looking strictly at the second base, for him, it would be Peraza, it would be Vivas, and it would be Durbin. Right. Now, that's the question that they're going to have. And, how much does Gleyber want to stay in New York as well? Because if he is, depending on how this season goes, because we don't know right now, we're talking about this. We also did a hypothetical with Alex Verdugo way back, when he was hitting well. We're like, wow, he's playing himself into a potential contract, especially because Spencer Jones, I don't think is going to be ready next year to come in the big league. So look, Gleyber, I think at 14.2 this year on a 1-year deal because of they wanted to avoid arbitration. So that's what they agreed on. Mm-hmm. I mean, Marcus Stroman's making 18.3. Do you think Gleyber's worth what Marcus Stroman makes this year?
Is next year's version of Gleyber Torres is more than likely what Gleyber Torres gives any team in 2025 worth more than what Marcus Stroman's paid this year? In my opinion, yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't even think it's close because Gleyber more often than not is a good baseball player.
More often than not, which I understand, because you have to remember, Jake, there are going to be people who watch this show and think you would pay this player that we're watching. Well, this player we've watched the last 30 days, yes.
Yeah.
The player that we got in 2024, no. If we get this player, then absolutely not. He's not worth $20 million. He's not worth a 5-year, $100 million deal. He's worth 5 years, $100 million. And I know it sounds like a ridiculous amount of money, but guys, when you hit, with your on base is 400 for a month and you hit 290 and you hit homers and play second base in a major market, you get $100 million. A closer for the Mets got $100 million. So if you think that you're going to get a player hitting 280 for a month with a 400 on base percentage who more than likely hits 25 homers, yeah, it's going to cost you $20 million. It's a lot of money, but damn it, Jake, it's a $7 billion organization, and we don't pay a dime of these contracts. This is all coming out of Hal Steinbrenner's pockets, and if he wants to field the best team next year, I'm not saying it needs to be by way of Gleyber Torres, but if you want Gleyber Torres, don't tell me about money. If you don't want Gleyber Torres, I don't even want to introduce numbers of contracts. Just tell me the option that you think would be best, and let's go get that player.
I mean, Dansby Swanson is making $25.2 million a year. How much better is Dansby Swanson than Gleyber?
He's not better in any way.
I don't think so either, right? No. And Bogarts is barely making more than Dansby Swanson.
Yeah, Bogarts is just extended longer. I think he's extended through his age 41 season, which is kind of how, because that's about AAV. But the years in the total contract, that's how Gleyber Torres gets to 100 million. He goes to 5 years. Because people forget these contracts. When you hear 330 million or Ohtani 700 million, Judge 360, these numbers were strategically made public by these organizations because why? It makes players look overpaid.
Yeah, it does.
You guys all clamor. I promise you, there are going to be people in our comment section saying, why would you give Gleyber Torres $100 million? As if we're giving it to him via charity or because we want to. No, we end up paying each player because another organization would have went probably slightly below there, and we had to go just above them in order to get the player. And so we're kind of trying to figure out now, does Gleyber Torres feel that long-term? Jake, I actually think there's an opportunity where Gleyber Torres plays well enough between now and October, the end of October, and gets that 4 or 5 year deal. Would the Seattle Mariners throw a 6-year contract at Gleyber Torres at $20 million a year? I think they would.
I think Gleyber, I'm not going to lie to you, I think Gleyber is somebody who would take a hometown discount to come back to the Yankees.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
I don't think you'd get that with Juan Soto. And let me make this clear. When I'm saying I don't think you'd get with Juan Soto, it's not me trying to trash Juan Soto for it. I don't think you owe a team anything.
But he's also in a totally different tax bracket.
Yeah.
Juan Soto taking a discount is not the same thing as Gleyber Torres doing it.
But I think Gleyber wants to be here. I think he got over the bumps, right? We saw it. Like at one point I was wondering, because I've seen when athletes and the coaches don't get along, and I was wondering, like, is Gleyber in that doghouse now? Is his confidence shot and everything? No. Instead of sitting there and being upset and making a big deal about it and sounding off like Joey Gallo did to the media, and he wasn't even held accountable for how badly he played.
Yeah, but and by the way, can we talk about the chants? Did you see the chants today with Juan Soto?
Oh, yeah. I love that.
I think we have to talk about that because Juan Soto,
he wants to stay in New York. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he does, but he's also being out front with this negotiation. This is not something Derek Jeter did. Now, obviously, these are two different players, but Derek Jeter has said, I don't want to talk about any of this contract stuff. I don't want it to be in the media. Brian Cashman, keep me out of it. We'll talk numbers between you and I, but outside of that, we're not talking about it. And then they went public with it, and that obviously ticked off Derek Jeter. But Juan Soto, he heard the chants. Aaron Judge saw the chants.
He's like,
and they're kind of working off it. They're pointing at him. So essentially, here's where the takeaway is. The takeaway is that Aaron Judge wants Juan Soto back just as much as we do, and they're willing to put pressure on their general manager and ownership to get it done. It doesn't seem like it's much of a conversation amongst players of who wants who back and what that desperation looks like. It seems like it's almost us versus them mentality. If they want this player, then pay up. And I love that. I absolutely love it. I'm not really concerned about a hometown discount when it comes to Juan Soto.
It's on my money.
I think given his age, 25 years old, he'll be 26 years old, entering into his first year on this extension. This is the type of age, the type of talent, given the team needs, that you don't ask this player for the discount. You ask a Gleyber Torres for the discount. Those are the players you ask for a discount. But this guy, if there's a player you're going to go top dollar, did Shohei Ohtani give the Dodgers a discount? No. And he's a 30-year-old player who will be getting paid at age 50 by the Dodgers. He's not giving them a discount. So I just think it's blasphemous for this team to ask him for one. I don't even think they should or will. I just think, like you said, Juan Soto is going to cost top dollar. I was glad to see the organization have some pressure to sign this player.
Absolutely. And I think it was a good sign today. Like, Aaron Judge kind of looking at him like, you see, this is what this is all about. This is what we can do.
Right.
I mean, if you stay here, this can be every year. I think it's hard to detach yourself from the reality that you're only guaranteed one season with Juan Soto. Like Juan Soto may not think about it because he's just playing baseball. He's not even thinking really about free agency right now. He's enjoying himself. Every single time Aaron Judge hits a home run, he's the first guy on the top step to celebrate with him, regardless if he just, rounded the bases himself or he was in the dugout already. But the reality of it is Juan Soto, he can very easily, I'm not saying this is who he is, but he could very easily get stuck in this whole, wow, this is great, and just assume this is going to be forever. And I think in that moment, when you heard the chants are very loud, they're coming through the broadcast, you see that the way they actually aired it, they had the split box. I thought was very smart. You saw Aaron Judge, and Aaron Judge looking over at Juan Soto. That was, in my opinion, that was him saying, you see this? This is only guaranteed this year. If you
Can
want
I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What would be the state of the Yankees just in terms of the fan base, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they understand this, Scott Boras clearly wants to get top dollar, right? And there's a number that Scott Boras has in mind. It's probably not going to be north of 700 million, but there's a number that Scott Boras is absolutely looking for. What would Hal Steinbrenner look like if he just put it on the table now and announced an extension today? What would that look like?
Well, I mean, it also makes Cashman look good too, just by association.
Right. So wouldn't that be the best thing for all parties to put out a number that's high enough that Scott Boras is willing to forego free agency, which he normally doesn't do? But we've also seen Scott Boras agree to bring back Jose Altuve to Houston on a discount when normally Boras wouldn't do that. So I think if the player wants to get something done, you don't necessarily have to agree to a $400 million deal when you could just get 600 on the open market. But if the number is high enough to where the player says, you know what, that's the number we were looking for, do you think that if Hal Steinbrenner put that number down today, it would get done?
Yes, I do.
How much does Hal Steinbrenner, if you really think about this, Hal Steinbrenner is going to have to pay him in free agency.
He's going to pay him like $679 million.
So if that's the case, put 640 on the table today and you can go public with it.
He probably already is.
Right, but he hasn't gone public with it. What if Hal Steinbrenner put that number on the table? We offered $625 million to Juan Soto this morning. What do they do now?
The fan base would go crazy.
The fan base would be looking at who to sign the deal.
I mean, I think Hal's going to get it done. I really do.
I agree with you.
I don't see a scenario because, I mean, let's just talk from a business perspective. The demographic of Juan Soto's fans, you lose them. So if you're a businessman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Typically speaking, you want those fans. They're going to go wherever Juan Soto goes.
So I kind of agree.
Well, that's not the main thing, though. That's just one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
The main thing is you have Aaron Judge, who's getting better with age, but that's not going to last.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't get over the hump in 2022 and, other seasons where it looked like 2019, what have you, like this is where okay, Juan Soto, even if it doesn't happen this year, signing him ensures that it could happen at some point down the line. The bottom line is they just celebrated the 2009 team because there has not been another World Series team since. That's why. Right. I mean, that's the brutal, honest truth. I understand, it's been 15 years, so it's a 15-year anniversary, but the important the realization here is that the Yankees do not have any World Series wins since 2019 or since 2009. And so that's why, to me, I think Hal, I'm not like a big Hal fan, but I think Hal's looking at Juan Soto like, where do you even, how do you, with a straight face, come back the next year, take pressers, watch how the fans react and everything? How do you, with a straight face, come back and say, yeah, we did all we could. We didn't end up with Juan Soto after all. You didn't even win the World Series before with Juan Soto in this scenario. There's no, and that's to me the thing is like, there's no way that they can let him go. And I think they knew that when they made this trade. This was not a rental. And I kind of wish people would stop acting like it was, because a lot of people do. And to me, this was a trade that they made knowing that he's not the best baseball player in the league right now, but he's up there with like the best, top 3, top 5, whatever. He's going to be even better as time goes on. Like his power's going to get more developed. He's going to get better. And he's only 25 right now. He'll be 26 in October. So what I'm getting at here is that Juan Soto really is a man amongst boys. I mean, that's really what he is at the end of the day. Just his swing, everything, right? Now, I understand, he's got some flaws, obviously, in the field. That's fair, whatever. But you have a guy who can change the course of the game at any given moment, and you have him with Aaron Judge. So you have Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig of this generation, essentially,
That's
or
right.
Mantle and Maris, whatever you want to call it. The point I'm making is that you can't break that up. We were talking about this being the best duo. I mean, and this is a thing. Hal, Brian Cashman, this would be a stain on their legacy. If they want to retire, if they want to hang it up with the Yankees on a good note, they can't do so with any sort of scenario that involves Juan Soto leaving the Bronx. It's that simple. They will be the ones that are labeled as the guy that got away. And it's like, they would make us look stupid too, because we've been saying, hey, they haven't literally lost anybody, really. Robinson Cano, they gave him a price. They were fine bringing him back, obviously. But if they didn't, they were also fine, And so I don't look at Robinson Cano years later as a guy that they lost. I look at like that, for instance, a guy like Juan Soto, a guy like Aaron Judge. Like if you lose that guy to the Giants last year, that's a loss. You wanted Aaron Judge back.
Yeah, there were factors to Robinson Cano. He was a 32-year-old second baseman.
Yeah.
And very clearly, he was getting a long-term deal after age 35. I think everybody knew you needed to win in those first 3 years. The rest of that contract was going to be an abomination, which
absolutely.
They were fine with if he agreed to the $200 million deal, as long as it didn't go past that. It obviously went to 240, and the Yankees said, okay, we're not going to go up to 250 for a player who's 32 at second base. So they let him go. Juan Soto doesn't have a flaw that's worth allowing him to walk. And so the question is now, Juan Soto, if you put $625 million in front of him, let's just say 600, a nice round number, but your expectation is that he's going to get somewhere. The league and writers, they have him getting somewhere in the mid 600s. If you put $600 million on the table and went public, that's the offer we made. Very clearly, you're serious about bringing Juan Soto back. You're now putting pressure on him to agree to that deal. But Jake, you said he wants to be a Yankee. The question is, does Scott Boras, given what just happened with all his players, is he going to force Hal Steinbrenner to be the highest bidder on Juan Soto? And that's the question, because people perceive that if you're offered $650 million and somebody shows up to your front doorstep with $700 and you don't go back to the hometown team at $650, you must not have wanted to be there that bad. But sometimes there are other factors at work. Sometimes your agent can get in your ear. Sometimes fans can get in your ear. Family can get in your ear. And it goes beyond whether or not you wanted to just play here. So I totally agree with you. Juan Soto wants to be a Yankee, but he also wants them to be the highest bidder, which is probably why Juan Soto hasn't gone to their front office and said, let's get it done. So just an interesting situation. I have a good feeling, totally agree with you about how this is going to play out. Hal usually doesn't lose a guy that's a can't miss player. He didn't miss out on Garrett Cole. A lot of the players that we said outside of like Harper and Machado, the Yankees have gotten it done. So They haven't been very aggressive on the trade market. Not going to defend him there in any way.
No.
But as far as a guy that's right in front of them where they just get to write a check, they did it with DJ LeMahieu. People eventually complained about how he's aged, right? The Yankees in general have written checks to players for much less. So if Juan Soto can do this and they look like Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth, and then now suddenly you're going to say no to writing that open check, well, now we have a problem. And Hausheimer, frankly, I mean, he shouldn't show his face. If he lets a player like this go, it's embarrassing. There's no justification for it. And anyone selling that Jason Dominguez is this replacement for Juan Soto, no, he's an addition. When you're talking about a team that hasn't won a World Series in 15 years, you don't talk about replacements. This isn't the Washington Nationals where you're going to sell me Juan Soto's replacing Bryce Harper. And you know what happened there? They got rid of Bryce Harper. He went to Philly. They said Juan Soto was a replacement. They didn't give him the extension. They offered him an amount of money they knew he would say no to, and they got rid of him too. So, losing proposition. I hope that this is a long-term marriage, but I agree with you. I think he comes back.
I do too. So, that is going to wrap this thing up. But as always, Gary, they won 10-3. Pretty big fashion. Fireworks galore. So now you have to recommend a really good movie that matches that.
Perfect. So I'm going to give you guys the best movie that I know of that has fireworks involved. And I know I went with a bad movie with this same series earlier this year. And for those of you who've been watching us for months now, you know this. But I'm going with the original Sandlot. The original Sandlot, best 4th of July movie ever. Fireworks today at the stadium. We're going fireworks in the movie Sandlot.
Drop Sandlot in the comment section below. Not Sandlot 2. We're going to pretend
Sandlot 2
never happened. But Sandlot in the comment section below. We appreciate you guys. If you at any point want to become a member of the channel, just hit the join button. Should be below the video. If you can't find the join button, the link is in the description and the comment section below. But we will see you guys in the next episode. Take care, folks.
Like this video.